Hello, everybody, and thank you for taking the time to join this short video where I'm going to be going over how we can use three of our products, Go Anywhere, along with our content scanning engine and our data classification um, tool, Titus, to guard against intellectual property, restricted property, sensitive information, things along those lines. I am Scott Messick, a lead solutions engineer with Fortra. I work within a couple of different business units. One is the file transfer space. That's my primary responsibility. And then I support our content scanning engine, which we're going to be reviewing today. That's our ICAP gateway. And also have a little bit of knowledge of some of our other solutions, such as Titus, one of our data classification tools. So in this short video, we're going to be going over a couple of things. Basically, we're going to be working within Microsoft Office. You can use other applications as well to classify sensitive information using Titus. We're going to be going over how we can use our content scanning engine ICAP to read and look for those data sensitivity labels. The video is going to focus on Titus, but it doesn't have to be Titus. You can be using Bold and James or Microsoft Information Protection or another tool to classify documents or label documents. We're going to be working through how we set this up within our content scanning engine, how to link it to a content rule, how to apply the rule to a route. And then we'll start uploading files into Go Anywhere to see how the system behaves once we see sensitive information. We're also going to be going over, or excuse me, classified information. We're also going to be going over sensitive information as well, and how to guard against sensitive information. And then we'll look at the logs finally. So we're going to keep this video short. There's also going to be a webinar which we're going to be running with Carasoft. You'll be able to watch that as well once that is available. That will be upcoming soon, and you'll be able to see this and that on our website. So as you can see, I'm working in Microsoft Office here. I'm going to start in Word, and I'm going to go ahead and open up to begin with, it's actually intellectual property. It's a restricted document. As you can see here, it's got some engineering information about this F-22 fighter plane, some of the weapons that it can hold, and things along those lines. So this type of document really shouldn't be able to be seen by anyone outside of us, or maybe our restricted partners who are helping us design this plane, or things along those lines. So right now it doesn't have a label on it. So if I were to come in and try to save it or close the document, this is Titus here that's prompting us to do something with this. It's an automatic configuration, agent-based, that's installed on the client. This is all customizable. We're just going to be working with the restricted labels for now. So I'm going to go ahead and select that. You can't get out of choosing this. You define a retention setting. So I'm just going to leave the defaults in here for now. And I'm going to go ahead and just save the document. And what that's going to do is that's going to apply some labels. It's going to put it on the document metadata. So now, as you can see, this document is classified as restricted, but it's just the properties of the document. To a system would have to understand the properties. And we'll get to that in the next part of the presentation. Second thing I'm going to do is I'm going to open up another document which contains some sensitive information. I'll go to my confidential folder. This is clearly a document where someone was applying for a position, maybe inadvertently put their social security number in there, multitasking, something along those lines. So it really shouldn't have been placed like this. Maybe there's a portal where people can upload these types of documents where sensitive information is stored, or maybe this information isn't supposed to be presented in this format and readable text in this document. So when I try to save this document, I'm same prompts. This time around, I'm going to select confidential. Again, this is all customizable. These are all the Titus settings that can be configured. And all I'm doing really is just defining the sensitivity label here. So I'm going to go ahead and define this as confidential. I can go ahead and I can put personal information as well in here. That's just another attribute that's defined on the document. So this is the data classification part. This is where the classifications are applied. So now what we're going to do is we're going to change gears, and I'm going to show you these documents as they're traversing through our managed file transfer environment and the content scanning that can take place in order to block these files, at least monitor the files and things along those lines. Okay, so we're going to take those files that we use Titus to place the markings or data classifications on. I am going to walk through how we configure the content scanner, our ClearSwift ICAP gateway, to look at the metadata. Then we're going to review the content rule that is looking at the metadata. So there's two parts of that. One is to define the sensitivity text or the level. The second is to create the rule. The third is to map the rule to a route. Then what we're going to do is we're going to upload a few files into Go Anywhere, some that have the tags that we already created and some that do not. Two different ways that we're going to do this. One is we're just going to do like a scheduled file scan. So a project that's just sweeping network shares, doing something similar to emulating a user uploading files as well. So let's start with looking at the files. This was the first file that we created that has the social security number in it. So we documented that as classified. Then we have this architecture schematic, an upgrade concept for this fighter plane. And so in addition to these, so this would be considered as restricted or intellectual property. But in addition to that, in the project share, I just have a test document. And then I also have some information about that same fighter plane, just has like which weapon. So this wouldn't really be sensitive information or intellectual property or anything along those lines. So now I have my project share. You can see these are the two files that don't have the sensitivity labels applied. And then I have in the confidential folder, the restricted folder. The folder doesn't really much matter. I just organize them here for the presentation. So these are the files that we're going to be working with. So now if we start with the user, what we'll do is I will sign in as my test user. Take a step back and we'll sign in first as my test user. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to upload a few files. The first one is the restricted file, which is the upgrade concept schematic for that fighter plane. Go ahead and upload that. I'll refresh this. You should see that file is not allowed to be uploaded. And then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to upload that confidential document. It has that information where the document was created about a job recruit that had the social security number. So it's got sensitive information in it. So I go ahead and upload that one as well. So you can see that those files were both blocked. Now, if I move over to ClearSwift, I'll start with my policy definition and I'll work my way back over into Go Anywhere into the logs. So the first thing is I have the first file I uploaded was the restricted documents. So that was the intellectual property. As you can see here, I'm just defining the classification itself, which is restricted. You can define whatever classifications you want. You build these manually, and then you link them to the content rule. So that's the intellectual property or the restricted classification. And then we have the confidential document classification. Similar concept. You could put them in the same rule if you want to, but for reporting purposes, I've separated them in this presentation. So now what I do is you'll see these are linked to content rules. So I'm going to go into my content rules and I'm going to show you both. So I have the tech confidential documents. You can see that it's linked to that lexical expression that I created. But there's something interesting about this is that we were only looking in the header and the footer or the properties of the document. We're not scanning the body. Why? Because if we scan the body, for every time we saw the word confidential, there would obviously get created a lot of false positives. And if we see that just in the metadata or the document properties, we're going to go ahead and we're going to block it. So that's the first rule. So it was confidential. And now we have the detect of the restricted information, which is alphabetic. So here's the detection of the restricted document. Similar concept is linked to that lexical expression that we created. And again, we're only looking at the document headers or the properties of the document, because we don't want to look for the term restricted anywhere in any given document. Also note various media types, Microsoft Office, that we can detect that content inside of. There's probably about I'm not sure exactly. There's a decent amount of file types that we can open up and detect this information where these tags are written. So now the last thing is the route. So in my case, I just have a couple of routes here, but I could have as many routes as I wanted, as many rules as I wanted, as many expressions as I wanted. But you'll see here that in addition to looking for viruses and media types, blocking media types, what I'm also doing here is I am looking for those rules, the confidential and the restricted metadata. Those are two individual rules that I've created here, on top of some of the other rules, that the standard stuff, the blocking banned media types, viruses, and things along those lines. So now I'm going to go ahead and I am going to I already uploaded those files. So now I'm going to work my way back into Go Anywhere. I'll go into my audit logs, and you'll see here that I have two. The first one, you can see that in the X virus ID or the X infection found, you can actually see here that it documents why the file was blocked, because it's considered restricted documents. Here's my codes, my 200.403, which is a block code. If I wanted to do a custom action, I could, in my project, say something like, if the X virus ID is restricted documents, do something custom. So that's the restricted documents, and that's the upgrade concept. And then we have the job opening file. I'm going to go ahead and look at that file, and you can see here that we found confidential information in there that was just in the metadata. Now you can see those two files are blocked within ClearSwift. So if I go to my logging, you'll see here that for both of them, it's actually telling me the rule and where it detected it in the header, footer, and in the tags for both files. So that's the restricted, and then here is the confidential. Same concept. It's looking in the header and then the tags of the information. It didn't find that word anywhere else in the file. Now, the next concept is, so I have a trigger linked to a project within Go Anywhere. The project calls the ICAP task and all the content rules and things along those lines. So now another effort possibly would be if I wanted to actually scan the project data. So as you can see, I have my active project data. I have a couple of plain files that don't have any tags on them. And then I have in the confidential and the restricted folders are those two other files. It doesn't really matter where you put them. I've just organized them for the presentation. So now I'm going to come into my workflows and my projects, and I have this project files data at rest scan. So I'm just going to open this up. This can be called either by a monitor or a scheduled task, but I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to launch this project. I'll just walk you through this. And so you can see here that all I'm doing is I'm creating a file list, and I'm pointing to the location where I have those project files happens to be on my desktop. Now copying those files to the workspace, and then once they're in the workspace, I'm going to go ahead and loop through them, and I'm going to just scan them. And then depending upon what the ICAP response header reveals, if it's a clean file, dirty file, 200.403 happens to be dirty, 0204 is clean. This would be a modified file like active content or something like this. I'm just now calling other modules. Like so for instance, the blocked file would be to call the dirty file module. And in the dirty file module, all I'm doing is just printing that the files weren't transferred. But if it's a clean file, you'll see here that I'm calling a different module, files to transfer, and I'm just doing an SFTP put. So here's my Go Anywhere FTP server, and then I'm just putting them in the project data shares. So only if the file is clean, I'm going to transfer it. Otherwise, that stuff stays local. So I'll go ahead and execute this one more time. And now what you'll see is if I just go through my job log, here's my 4 files, because it scanned all of those, the weapons capabilities, project information. That was just a sample document, the upgrade concept, and then the job opening doc. So all 4 got scanned. You can see here's a clean file. And then we go to the SFTP task if it's clean. And then we transfer that file to this location, which we just did. That's my SFTP server. Here's another clean file. Here's another SFTP transfer. And then we have the two block files, the 200.403. And so now we call the module dirty file and nothing happens. And so you can see here, this is my print statement. I just basically print the file name and that it was not transferred. And then there's one more 200.403, similar concept. So that is essentially how we can use Titus with Go Anywhere and our ClearSwift ICAP gateway you can see there's our two clean files here that got moved to my SFTP share. But that's how we can use these three solutions to ring fence or guard your sensitive documents. Thank you very much for taking the time to review this short video. And as I previously mentioned, we're going to be doing a webinar. We're going to be going over this concept in a little more detail as well.